What did people actually drink 3,000 years ago? No soda, no coffee, no clean tap water waiting at the press of a button. For 14 days I only drank what the Bible describes: curdled milk, aged wine, water mixed with honey straight from the comb, even vinegar, the same drink soldiers once gave to a dying man on a cross. Some of these drinks healed people. Some were offered as comfort. One was offered as mockery. By day 3, my body started reacting in ways I did not expect. This is what happened when I lived on biblical drinks for 2 weeks. Before I started, I made myself one rule: every single drink had to come from the Bible, not inspired by the Bible, actually described in it. So I picked 7 drinks. 7 different drinks that real people, in real Bible stories, actually drank. I organized them into 14 days. 2 days for each one. No coffee, no modern juice, no flavored water, just these 7, one at a time, for 2 full weeks. I want to be honest with you before we start. Some of what I'm about to describe comes directly from Scripture. Some of it is historical detail added on top, based on how food historians believe these drinks were made in ancient times. I'll tell you which is which as we go. Let's start with day 1. Days 1-2. Curdled milk. My first drink was curdled milk. In Hebrew culture, this was often called leaven. Think of it like a thick, sour yogurt drink. This drink actually appears early in the Bible. In Genesis chapter 18, verse 8, Abraham welcomes 3 visitors to his tent. He serves them curds and milk, along with fresh bread and meat. It's one of the first meals described in the whole book. Back then, milk spoiled fast in the desert heat, so people let it curdle on purpose. The result was something closer to a drinkable yogurt than the milk we know today. I made my own version using fermented milk and, honestly, it wasn't as bad as I expected. It was thick, tangy, almost sour. My stomach actually felt fine on it. Some researchers suggest fermented dairy like this may have been easier to digest for ancient people than raw milk, since fermentation breaks down some of the lactose. That's not a guarantee, just something worth knowing. 2 days in, and I felt normal. That confidence did not last. Days 3-4, aged wine. Next was aged wine, which the Bible calls yayin in Hebrew. In Isaiah chapter 25, verse 6, there's a description of a feast with well-aged wine. This wasn't casual drinking. Aged wine in the Bible often shows up at celebrations, feasts, moments of joy. Ancient wine was very different from modern wine. It was usually diluted with water before drinking, sometimes 3 parts water to 1 part wine. Drinking wine completely undiluted was actually seen as excessive back then. I mixed my wine with water, the way historians believe it was commonly done. It was lighter than I expected, less like a drink to get drunk on, more like a flavored, slightly bitter water. This is where things started to shift for me. By day 4, I noticed I was more tired than usual. Small changes. Nothing dramatic yet. Days 5-6, honeycomb drippings with water. Days 5 and 6 were, honestly, the drink I looked forward to the most. Honey shows up again and again in the Bible as something good, something sweet, something valuable. In Song of Solomon chapter 5 verse 1, honeycomb and honey are mentioned together as a treasured thing to eat and drink. And in 1 Samuel chapter 14 verses 25 through 27, there's a story about wild honey dripping from a honeycomb in a forest. Jonathan, one of King Saul's sons, eats it during a battle, and it immediately restores his energy. So for 2 days, I mixed raw honeycomb drippings into water, and I understand why the Bible describes honey this way. It was one of the only concentrated sources of natural sugar available at the time. No processed sugar existed, no sweet drinks like we have now. The taste was incredible, naturally sweet, slightly floral, and I did feel a burst of energy after drinking it, which lines up with what you'd expect. Honey is mostly natural sugar, so a quick energy boost makes sense. I want to be careful here, though. That doesn't mean honey has some kind of magical healing power. It's just a fast source of energy, the same way any concentrated sugar would be. This was the best 2 days of the whole experiment. It would not last. Days 7-8, wine mixed with myrrh. Day 7 is where the challenge turned serious. Wine mixed with myrrh has one of the most well-known appearances in the entire Bible. In Mark chapter 15 verse 23, this exact drink is offered to Jesus right before his crucifixion. According to the text, he tasted it and refused to drink it. Myrrh is a resin taken from a tree called Commiphora myrrha. It's bitter, extremely bitter. In ancient times, myrrh mixed with wine may have acted as a mild sedative, something offered to dull pain before suffering. I made my own version, wine mixed with a small amount of myrrh resin dissolved in it. The taste was harsh, bitter, almost medicinal, nothing like a drink meant to be enjoyed. Now I understood why Jesus refused it in that verse. It wasn't a pleasant drink. It was something offered in a moment of extreme suffering, and he chose to face that moment clearly instead. This was the hardest 2 days so far, and not just because of the taste. Something about drinking this, and knowing exactly where it came from in the story, made the whole challenge feel heavier. Days 9-10, sour wine. Next came vinegar, sometimes called sour wine. This drink appears twice in the Bible, in two very different situations. In Ruth chapter 2 verse 14, Boaz offers Ruth bread dipped in vinegar during a meal, a normal, ordinary act of hospitality. But later, in Matthew chapter 27 verse 48, sour wine is offered to Jesus on the cross, soaked into a sponge on a stick. Historians believe a drink very close to this, called Posca, was common among Roman soldiers. It was water mixed with cheap, sour wine or vinegar. Some historical sources describe it as a basic ration drink, used because it was cheap and helped mask the taste of unclean water. I mixed vinegar with water at a mild ratio. It was sharp, sour, honestly unpleasant to drink in any real quantity. My stomach did not enjoy these 2 days. It's a stark contrast. This ordinary soldier's ration drink also became the last drink Jesus was offered before he died. 2 drinks. Same basic recipe, 2 completely different meanings. Days 11-12, plain well after 9 straight days of bitter, sour, and sweet drinks. Days 11 and 12 felt like relief, just plain water. Wells and springs show up constantly throughout the Bible, often as meeting points, turning points in stories. In Genesis chapter 24, Rebekah is found at a well, drawing water for a stranger's camels, a moment that changes the direction of her whole life. Later, in John chapter 4 verse 14, water takes on a deeper meaning, described as something that can satisfy a thirst that never returns. For these 2 days, I only drank clean spring water. No mixing, no additions. My body needed it. This was the point where I felt the most normal since day 1. Hydrated, steady, clear-headed. It made me realize something. In almost every ancient story, water wasn't just something people drank without thinking. Finding it, carrying it, sharing it. That was work. That was meaningful. We forget that when water comes out of a tap in seconds. Days 13-14. Vinegar oil mixture for the final 2 days. I saved the drink I was least sure about, a mixture of vinegar and oil. I want to be transparent with you here. I could not find one clear, specific verse that describes vinegar and oil together as a drink. What the Bible does describe is oil used for healing. In James chapter 5 verse 14, oil is used to anoint someone who is sick, and vinegar used separately, like we saw with Ruth and with the sponge offered to Jesus. So this final drink is more of a historical reconstruction than something you can point to in one exact verse. I wanted to include it anyway, because oil and vinegar mixtures do show up in descriptions of ancient Mediterranean diets from that period. Drinking it was rough. Oil doesn't mix well with vinegar, no matter how hard you stir it. It coated my mouth in a strange, heavy way. Out of all 7 drinks, this was the hardest to actually swallow. 14 days, 7 drinks. Done. Looking back over these 2 weeks, the drink that stayed with me the most wasn't the sweetest one, or even the hardest one to finish. It was the wine mixed with myrrh. Because, for one moment, drinking that same bitter cup made a story I'd read many times feel real in a completely different way. These 7 drinks weren't just ancient recipes. Each one sat inside a real moment, a welcome at a tent, a battle, a wedding field, a cross. Drinking them didn't just teach me about ancient history, it made me slow down and actually sit with these stories instead of just reading past them. If you've ever wondered what it might have felt like to live inside one of these moments, even for a few minutes, that's what this challenge gave me. If this kind of video interests you, I'd love for you to stick around. There are more of these ancient experiments coming. Thanks for watching.